This is a video for my apprentices on the planer. We're going to go over use, safety, and maybe some tips and tricks on the way. So let's get to it. So to start, we're going to go over the anatomy or the inside of the planer. All right. One thing I need to note though is not every planer has table rollers. All right. The smaller capacity ones, like your 12 and your 10-inch planers, might not have table rollers built into the table. It might just be a flat piece of steel. So this is not important to us right now. But for the bigger planers, which I'm going to show a picture of right now, so Big Green, our 26.25-inch planer, and Toro, which is our 14-inch planer, do allow these parts to be used. But we're just going to talk about what's going on and how to get the board through. So if I wanted to plane a board down, all right, one of the big safety thing is I want to make sure that the board goes into the infeed roller as parallel to the table as possible. I don't want it to come in like this, and I don't want it to come in like this. The reason why this is a problem is because if you press too hard and you get past the chip breaker, you can actually cut up the front part of your board and make it a different thickness than the rest of the board once you get to the other side. If you come in like this, what's going to happen is eventually the board's going to slap down to the table, and if your finger is on the side of that board next to the table, it will pinch your fingers. So again, you want to feed it as straight and parallel to the table as possible. All right? So as it goes through, the infeed roller is going to pull it in. The chip breaker is going to push it down to the table, so it's going to just be an aid. So it's going to aid it, press it down to the table. It's going to go through, the cutter head's going to change the thickness, and as it comes out the other side, the outfeed roller and the pressure bar are going to try to keep it down to the table. When you get to about 50 to 60% through the planer, you, the operator, needs to go around the other side. So I'm just going to show a video of this real quick. So you're going to go around the other side of the planer and pull the board, cutting back to this, pull the board parallel to the table out the other side. All right. So what we're going to cut to now is some safety, additional safety and actual use of the planer itself. So let's get to it. So we went over the general anatomy of the planer. And what I'm going to cover right now is just some safety. I'm going to also show some use. So with that said, let's get to it. So number one, obviously, safety glasses. There are lots of chances for sawdust to be kicked up during this operation. So again, it's always a good idea to wear safety glasses. Hearing protection is another one. If you're working inside, especially in an enclosed garage like this, when you're working with a planer plus a dust collection system, this is a must, because again, you want to save your hearing so you can hear stuff. All right. Moving on to the planer itself. Obviously, you want to follow the rule of from your middle finger to your elbow. There should be nothing hanging down, nothing that can get pulled into or sucked into the planer itself. And obviously, the big rule: never put your fingers inside the planer when it is on or when it is plugged in. All right, so again, if you have to do any type of maintenance or you need to fix the knives, always unplug the machine itself. All right. With that said, so for our project, the step stool, things that we're going to have to plane to a different thickness would be the front step, the top step, and if you've made hardwood or a different species rear support, you need to plane the rear support to 3/4 thickness. Right? So I have a piece of wood here that's larger than the thickness of my rabbet, and I need to plane it down so that the piece sits flush. Right? For the case of the top thickness needs to be 7/8 thick for the step stool, and for the center dado, we need to plane my step down to 3/4 thick to fit in this dado. Now with that said, one more thing I need to add is the runner that your drawer is going to slide on is also going to be a thin piece of wood that needs to be planed down to 1/2 inch thick by 3/4 wide. All right? So the planer is going to become an integral part of completing the rest of this project. So with that said, let's figure out what is the amount that I need to subtract from the board. So to find the final thickness, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my combination square, I'm going to press it against the side here, and lock it at the final thickness I desire for that piece. And right now we are, and I'm double checking all over, just to make sure that I got the exact measurement. We're at 3/4 of an inch. All right. Now I'm going to place this combination square somewhere close by where it won't fall off, right? So that I can check the board after each pass. The reason why I do that is that sometimes as you're going down, right, it's always a good insurance to check the board with the combination square, because this is exactly where I want to stop. Another reason why we do it is at the shop at the school, sometimes these gauges are going to get bumped, or they're out of alignment, or someone adjusts them without me knowing. So instead of just solely relying on this measurement here, this will always fit your part. So again, this measurement that I just set on my combination square is exactly where I want to stop. So when I'm done, I should be able to put my board against this and see that it's a perfect thickness set off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set everything to the side, and I'm actually going to start planing down the board I desire for this project. So let's get to it. So right now I'm going to quickly cover the lift mechanism for this planer here. So for each planer, you should figure out what rotation it takes to do a 1/16 of an inch, because a 1/16 of an inch is the ideal amount of material you normally subtract from a board that, you know, will also allow you to remove material fast enough that you're not there all day, but also don't overstress your machine. For Big Green, it's 1 hour of rotation. So if I'm thinking about rotation as the movement of this handle here, 1 hour of rotation would be from 0 all the way back to 0 would be a 1/16 of an inch. Toro is every half hour of rotation. So basically I would go from 6 o'clock to 12 o'clock for each time I pass the board through the planer. And then the little planers, I would say, like the Makita that we have, or Little Blue, or the one we have here, I go in quarter rotations just to make sure that I do not pass my measurement by accident. So I'm going to set it at 1/8 bigger than my final measurement. So that's going to be at 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to come up to 7/8, and I'm going to plane this board down. So I'm going to reorient the camera. So I'm going to have my board in hand, ready to go. And another thing I'm going to notice too is, I want to make note of this, is if you notice the grain loops like this, I want that to go in first. If I go the other way, what's going to happen is it's going to get torn out, or what we call tear out. So what I want to do is I want to feed the board in this direction to make a nice clean cut. So let's start the first pass. Spots in that board, as you can see, and you notice when I fed the board in, I fed it in nice and parallel, and once 50% came through, it came to the other side, and I pulled the board out nice and parallel to the table. So now I'm going to go from 12 o'clock to 4 o'clock until I get down to my measurement. So 4 o'clock. Go from 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock. And then I'm going to go down to 6, then 9. All right, so each one's going to be one pass. So this is 3 o'clock. So again, I use that combination square to ensure that I get that perfect thickness at the end. And as you can see, it fits perfectly in the rabbet in the back of my step stool. So there's no overhang, it's a perfect fit. And now I can use these as my supports for my rear support. Now, some tips besides making a nice mobile base for your planer so you can move it around, especially if you're doing longer boards. So if I'm doing something that's like 16 feet, I can move this outside so I'm not hampered by the wall behind my piece. Right? Fixing a planer down or bolting it down does limit you to the length of your boards, to how much you can plane. Other things, obviously I'm still working on a dust collection system. If you can make a hose that goes directly to your dust collection system on your planer, it makes it a lot easier in cleanup, and it also keeps a lot of the chips off your boards as you're running through the planer. Another tip is, and I'm actually going to show a video of this later, is I'm actually going to build an in-feed table and out-feed table that's longer than the standard setup. So the more space I have that's parallel to the table, the less likely I'm going to get snipe at the end of the boards. Because sometimes when I'm feeding a 16-foot board, right, and even if I have a roller, I might not have a chance to get to the back end before pulling it out straight. So again, in-feed and out-feed table extensions are great. I did mention though, having a roller. So you can use an in-feed, out-feed roller like this to help with your planing of your boards, but you also can do is actually use a drill press. So if you have a drill press, a standard drill press, you actually set the drill press table to the same height as the out-feed or the in-feed side of the table to give you more workable room. So again, sometimes if you don't have the ability to hold those boards, you can use your drill press or an out-feed roller to do that. So that covers a quick introduction into the planer. I'd like to make some videos in the future specifically on some planer specific jigs. But with that said, you guys have a great day and have a safe week.